Hello, caller. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
You know, you had an interesting point a little bit ago
What's that?
about everything rising and falling on leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and that leadership should have character, is my addition to that.
I agree.
And the most important part of, I know of about 49 different traits, character traits. Now, the most important one to me would be integrity, because that is what holds everything else up. Without that, everything else is way too flexible.
I agree.
And that's what we need to be looking for in our next president and any other person that we elect to any of the other offices. And also we need to pay a little bit more attention to Secretary of State, because they take care of authenticating the elections.
That's
and
true.
If we got somebody in there who is doing their job, that causes a lot of problems.
That's correct. So are you thinking that does happen, that we do have problems in our elections?
I think it does, yes.
Okay. Let me ask you.
If you look it up, you'll find that it's too easy to be fraudulent. It's too easy to rip off the vote. There's no way to. You have to take the machine's word for it. You shouldn't have to. Mm-hmm. And you should put that much trust in a machine that is so easily hacked. Mm-hmm. That is so easily because it's impossible to verify who voted for what. Now, I believe that everybody should have their vote, and nobody should be bullying them, and nobody should be prying into who voted for. But if you can't verify who they actually voted for, that's kind of, no, that doesn't work.
It seems like one of the reasons anyway, that we went to electronic voting rather than, the old style voting where you just, punched in your when it's all done, I guess, without electronics, is that this would be less of a chance to be able to manipulate the vote, that it would be more of a safeguard, but you don't agree with that.
Yeah, but you don't have any kind of paper to back you up. You just have a bunch of electronic whatevers, mm-hmm. and however it goes in the machine, there's no way to check the machine. You don't put something in power that you have no way to check. At least with the paper, you have a way to check. You have steps, and you have ways that you can safeguard that, but no paper.
But I think
there's no way to verify anything. You have to take the machine's word for it, and it's too easy to trip things up. It's too easy to put some slick program in there that switches things up, and then you can't find out. You can't find out that something sneaky has been done, and you can't get to the root of the problem.
I'm assuming that, and I don't know because I don't work with the machines, but I'm assuming there's some type of safeguard in there. Now, obviously, is anything 100%?
If it's hacked, you cannot find it.
Well, but again, when you're talking about paper ballots, it seems like it would be much easier if you wanted to manipulate a vote just to simply remove some ballots out, and that would be much easier to do with paper ballots than it would be electronically.
Actually, it's easier with the electronic because all you got to do is slip a program in there.
But that's what I'm saying.
That will steal votes
not that easy
for one
to do,
person
though.
or the other.
But that's not that easy to do, just to slip a program in. I mean, that's not something that a lot of people can do.
You can do it in less than 60 seconds.
Well, but I mean, I don't think there's been any cases where that's been done.
You'd be surprised.
Okay, well, I would be. Yeah, I just haven't heard of that being a problem. I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible that it can't happen.
It's been going around for a while.
What's that now?
That's been going around for a while.
The cases of where that's been in electronic voting?
There's been a lot. Again, it's very hard to prove. Somebody could get in there and steal an election, and it'd be very hard to prove. But there has been programs written on it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm simply saying
I'd rather see. Now, we could probably do the voting machine, but with a paper receipt. That
I don't
way
know
you
enough
have
about
some way
it to know
to
how.
check them. Don't ever
work.
put anything anywhere that you can't check. If you can't check it, really should not take anyone or anything's word for anything, especially these days.
I'll tell you what, would be a good idea to have someone on from our Board of Elections to talk about exactly what safeguards there are, because quite simply, I just don't know. But it'd be a great question to ask them. So just to find out exactly, the comparison between the two, someone who's been around both systems to say, okay, which one is better, which one, and what safeguards do you have? I think that's an excellent question to ask. Because we all want that. I mean, everybody's on the same page as far as we've got to have fair elections.
You want your vote to count. You want your vote to go where you put it.
Exactly.
And right now, there's too many gaping holes.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, I appreciate the call. Have a good day.
All righty.
See you.
Bye-bye.
241-1059 is our number. And I don't know that what she's saying is not true at all. I haven't heard, and I'm sure there have been cases. There's always, when you have millions of Americans voting on an election day, there are always cases of some snafus here and there. That's with anything. You're going to have something like that. But when it comes to writing programs to throw a system off to rig an election, I haven't heard of that happening around here anyway. Not to say that it couldn't happen, not to say that it hasn't happened. I'm assuming, and again, you can sometimes get in trouble for assuming, but I'm assuming that one of the reasons that more systems are going to electronic voting is because those things are easier to safeguard than paper ballots. But I don't know that for a fact, and that'll be a great question to ask an election official. And that goes back to another point. Asking someone who is involved in the process why something is happening. And I think that's a big missing point that we have so far with this quote-unquote controversy we have about the Lowndes County grading system. And just to bring you up to speed, as far as we can, there was a new policy introduced. I say a new policy. Actually, I think it's been around for a lot longer than most people think that it has been around. But it's been getting a lot of publicity lately about the new grading system with the Lowndes County Schools, or the grading system. If it is new, I've heard it's been around for more than a year, actually. And not to get into the meat of it because that would take too long, but basically the system or the new grading policy is that if a student scores below 70% on a test or on a course, that there are some measures in place to allow them to retake it so that they could make sure they get the material. This is for grades 3 through 8. And I believe that the thinking behind this is if they don't get up to speed now, then when they get later on into high school, they're going to be so far behind it's going to be a lost case. And that's why we have major dropout rates. Now, I've got some questions as to how this is exactly supposed to work, because I would think that if you are achieving, then if an educator is spending more time with those who aren't achieving, then that's going to slow the process down for those who are. Okay, and so that's the question that I've yet to see answered. Now, that goes back to my point. That's why we asked Dr. Steve Smith, superintendent with the Lowndes County Schools, to come on our show and explain this process, and he's going to be here Wednesday, and we appreciate that very much. As a matter of fact, he is going to have a press conference today at 10 a.m. to further discuss this grading policy. Now, what has happened is a couple of media outlets have picked this up and started bashing the school system for it, saying this is a terrible idea, rant and rave, that got inflamed, and everybody started calling in and saying, how dare we, and, it's Obama, it's consolidation. I've seen consolidation linked to it. I've seen Obama linked to it, and all this other stuff that people get really irate and emotional about, which to me is quite ridiculous, but that's in a whole other case. To me, again, I don't know if it's a good system or not, but I will say this. Educators usually know more about education than we, the general public, do. Now, that's not to say that every decision they make is a correct one, but on most of this, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If there's some study that's come out and a lot of experts say, listen, this is a new way to do things that we can achieve more, and they're going to try it out, then let's try it out. If it doesn't work, then we go back to the old way. But there's a reason that they've done this. It's not just willy-nilly that they've decided to do this new grading system on a lark. If it's going to work or not, or is it a good policy or not, I don't know yet, because we don't have, I don't think, all the information. What we do have are a lot of people who I think are jumping to some conclusions here and saying, well, of course it's a terrible system, and it's going to slow things down, and maybe they've not checked with their teacher. If you have a child in the school system and you believe this is a terrible idea, and I've seen a lot of people say, I can't wait to the school board meeting, I'm going to show up and voice my opinion. I hope that you do, because that's the right way to approach it. First, you ask your teacher, Then if you don't get a satisfactory answer, then you go to the principal. Then if that's not satisfactory, then you go on to the school board or to the superintendent. You know, if I'm living in a city and my road's not getting paved, I don't call the White House to complain about it. I call my city councilman or my county commissioner. And then if I don't get an answer that I think is a good answer there, then I go on to the board meeting and I question the county commission as a whole, or my mayor, or my council chairman, commission chairman, what have you. You need to go through the process. I know it feels good to pick up the phone and call rant and rave and start letting off some steam, but that's not going to fix the problem. So we'll look forward to having Dr. Smith on with us on Wednesday to address that and hopefully get some more information out there. Again, I'm not saying it's a good or bad policy because I don't have all the information yet. Hello, caller. Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. You know, the problem with the current education system is it marginalizes the most effective and most influential teachers in a child's life, his parents. You can work with a kid and work with a kid and work with a kid, but nobody's going to know that kid, should know that kid, better than his parents. Mm-hmm. And the parents are the first teachers. They're the ones there with the first steps and the first words and so forth and so on. And they know that kid better than anyone, and they have the most influence over that kid. Yeah. Also, with the education system, maybe we ought to go back to the old ways, because do you like being number 49 in the world? I don't.
No,
I want to be number 1 again. We were number 1 again, and in the old ways, we're getting it done. Number 1.
Wait, what old ways are you referring to?
The way we used to educate.
As in,
look at the statistics.
No, I know where we are in education, 49. But when you refer to the old ways, I'm trying to figure out what old ways you're talking about.
Not what we're doing right now.
Okay, well,
what we did before.
Okay, so let me go back. Now, that's the point I'm making. There's been a change made.
And we need to undo it, apparently, because we have dropped to number 49.
Well, no. We've been 49 for a long time. We've been 49 for quite a while. This change has just happened.
Go back and look at when we were number 1 and do that again. It's simple. Just there are still textbooks floating around and so forth, and people know what was, I don't know who knows, but people still know what was being done when we were number 1. Well, let's look at that. Let's talk to those people who were there when we were number 1, when stuff that would be doctoral work was done in grade school. Let's go back to that.
Okay. Now, are you talking about the country being number 1?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Because we're talking about, I know you're talking about Georgia or the country or whatever. I got you, though. So, listen, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the call.
All righty.
241-1059 is our number. Yeah, when she was saying number 1, I thought she was talking about the state of Georgia, ranking 49th in the country. So I assume that's what she was talking about, going back to number 1. But that's what I'm talking about. We do have problems in education. We are trying to get better. Now, again, I don't know if this change is going to work or not because I'm not an education expert. But I would like to find out. I would like to find out exactly what it means, and that's what we'll ask Dr. Smith on Wednesday, and I'm sure he'll address that today. There's already a message from Dr. Smith on the Lowndes County School Board website, which you can go and take a look at and see what he says about it. But, again, he's going to address that today at 10. And we're going to get your calls on this. And, again, I know we're going to I'll tell you, we're going to take a quick break. I know calls lining up. Hold right there. We're going to take a quick break, though, and we're going to come back and talk more about this and a lot of other stuff right here on News Talk 105.9. This is WVGA.